name is Rabbi Allison Van. I am the spiritual leader of Suburban Temple Kol Ami. It is an honor to be with you here this very sad morning to bid farewell to Ron Barron. Death has taken our beloved Ron. Our friends grieve in our darkened world. In our silence, there is lamentation. In our tears, there is loneliness. Lost in our sorrow, may we find the presence of loving friends. Hear us, O God, be with us. For Ron's love that united us in life and which death cannot sever. For his companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of his heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks. It's my honor to call forward Allison, who has written a poem in honor of her father.
This is for you, Daddy. It's called The Weather. Another place in time and space, doesn't it all seem real? Learning to be and just deal with the feel, we'll all come to terms and slowly begin to heal. The road ahead seems long and daunting, but you are at peace. The pain has finally ceased, and the sky is another angel up there. When the weather comes down, we'll picture your head in the clouds and know that somehow you were a part of it. Moment by moment, bit by bit, strong personality with determination and wit, sliding down the rainbow, all of it clear. What a difference you made all the time you were here. We will have to go on, holding you near. You taught us all well. It is so easy to tell. You impacted the world with your smile.
Poetry is timeless. From contemporary, beautiful, heartfelt poetry to timeless poetry, we turn now to Psalm 23. If you know the words, please join with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey. From childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until, looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai Natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people, we are well acquainted with the grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us. Yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave, and that there is strength in faith. With Job, we say, Adonai Natan, God, you have given. You gave us a loved one. You gave us Ron, who will never be forgotten. For all that was good and enduring in his life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. And we acknowledge Adonai Lakach, God, you have taken away. We pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust, before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and your love. And we say, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach, blessed be the name of God, now and forever. Being here today to say goodbye to Ron seems impossible. It seems surreal. Even those months in the hospital, it had to be that Ron would get better. With books on his nightstand at home, ranging from philosophy to chemistry to poetry to history to math to Judaism to business, Ron knew something about everything. And even in the hospital, he had a book brought to him by Lori, I believe on Epictetus, is that correct? It's amazing to me. With his vast knowledge and love of learning, when he interacted with people around him, there was no sense of judgment. Just a love of learning, a joy of being involved, a zest for the opportunity. This is what made Ron the go-to guy. Ron was our human Ask Google. If something was broken, ask Ron. If there was a business question, ask Ron. If there was a situation in the city that needed talking through, ask Ron. Ron, the brother of Charlene, Mal, and Richard, was an extremely talented musician. Mal wrote about Ron's talent and his ear, that at Ohio State he played alongside those who were music majors, even keeping them on their toes. What an inspiration he was for you, Mal. Ron also seemed to know something else. He wanted to be a husband. Perhaps this was because he knew about deep relationships from loving his siblings so much. By the time he was 20, he was ready to be a husband. And so when he was introduced to Laurie, that was it. Laurie, also close with her sisters, knew a good, loving, and true person when she saw one. She wasn't quite as ready to be a wife as he was a husband, but when she was introduced on a blind date to Ron, she knew he was not one to let go. They were so young, but she happily agreed to marry this wonderful young man. There was one pretty early bump in the road, though. She was happy to be married to him, but not happy that this meant a move away from her family, from her beloved sisters. So happily married, but unhappily settled in Toledo during pharmacy school. They learned to communicate and care for each other. He wanted to know why she cried every day. And so this is where they became a great team. And anyone who knew them knew that Laurie and Ron's relationship is the stuff of legends. These last months in the hospital have been so very difficult. And all who have cared for Ron have noted that there was something so special about the two of you. Just watching you be together, holding hands. Lori, I know how appreciative you are of Richard and Mal, how much they've done for you, of Ashley and Allison, of Charlene and your whole family. And I know that Ron was your best friend, and that this is just so hard. As you said, he tethered me. Proverbs 31 is a traditional proverb, usually spoken by a husband to a wife. I've retranslated it here. A good husband who can find? His worth is far above rubies. The heart of his wife trusts in him, and nothing shall she lack. He renders her good and not evil all the days of his life. He opens his hand to the needy and extends his hand to all. He is robed in strength and dignity, and cheerfully faces whatever may come. He opens his mouth with wisdom. His tongue is guided by kindness. He tends to the affairs of his household and eats not the bread of idleness. His children come forward and bless him. His wife too, and she endlessly praises him. Many men have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a God-revering man is much to be praised. Place before him the fruit of his hands. Wherever people gather, his deeds speak his praise. Laurie, our hearts are broken with you today. May you find some small comfort in our presence and support. A beautiful line in Proverbs 31 states, his children shall come forward and bless him. Ron reveled in raising his girls, Ashley and Allison, ensuring that they had skills not as girls, but as strong, independent thinkers. With each, your special, beautiful relationship. Allison and Ashley have known their dad to be such a kind and loving man. Ashley always knows he was there when Mike was out of town. Allison always had her person to rely on for anything she needed. And now for months you've been by his side, along with Lori, with the incredible doctors and nurses who cared for him. As Lori said, you've poured everything into him that he poured into you. What gifts you are, his strength, compassion, humor, wisdom, intelligence, and altruism now are yours, each in your own way. Watching you grow up, become women, and then parents, this was awe-inspiring to Ron. He adored being a grandfather and a father-in-law to Mike. He shone as a grandfather to Gabe, to Spencer, and to Phoebe. There is nothing he wouldn't do for them, never judging, always teaching, inspiring, caring, and sharing. He encouraged them in the things they loved to do. He shared the language and love of music with Spencer, encouraging and discussing clarinet and saxophone with him. He loved to just be with Gabe, walking together, talking about drawing. He loved what Phoebe wrote. Phoebe wrote a poem yesterday when I was with the family. I want to share these lines with you. You love us no matter what. Grampy, you will always be in our hearts. We will always love you every day. Phoebe perfectly sums up what he felt for his family and what the family feels for him. To share beautiful words of tribute for Ron, it's an honor for me to ask his son-in-law, Mike, to come forward.
Thank you for coming. I'm Mike Fisher, Ron's son-in-law. Lori, Ashley, and Allison asked me to speak on their behalf at this difficult time. In the short time allotted to me, I hope I can do justice to Ron. So let me say up front that he was a wonderful man, and I consider myself very lucky that he was not just my father-in-law, but a friend and a mentor. Ron was the proverbial Renaissance man. He was a pharmacist, a successful businessman, an information technologist, a teacher, a musician, a councilman. Ron was also a son, a brother, an uncle, a cousin, a husband, a father, and a grandfather. I cannot speak about Ron in detail with many respects to these capacities, but I can tell you that he was a wonderful father-in-law, friend, husband, father, and grandfather. A word that we can use to describe Ron is mensch, which is of course a Yiddish term that has generally come to mean a good guy, but the term really means much more than that. According to Leo Rothstein, the author of Joys of Yiddish, a mensch is someone to be admired, emulated, someone of noble character. The key to being a real mensch is nothing less than character, rectitude, dignity, a sense of what is right, responsible, decorous. Ron was the quintessential mensch. As a father and a husband, Ron took care of and provided well for his family. When I was traveling and Ashley had a crisis at the house, Ron was more than happy to drop everything and swing by with a pair of pliers or screwdriver to help fix something. He did the same for Allison, fixing leaky faucets, broken appliances, non-functioning technology. Ron's noble character shone through when he helped others. This passion for helping others drove him into politics. Having lived in Orange Village since 1979, Ron wanted to give back to his local community. So he ran for and was elected to the Orange Village Council in 2014, and he brought to this position his business savvy, keen intellect, and gift for finances. He also spent hours, days, and weeks campaigning for local, state, federal, and other issues that he cared about deeply. Even with his severe back pains, he walked door to door for days on end to fight for what he believed in. He was a driving force in bringing Pinecrest into the village. Another word that we can use to describe Ron is stoic. Stoicism is an ancient philosophy that teaches the development of self-control and fortitude as a means of overcoming destructive emotions. The book that Ron asked Lloyd to read to him as he lay in the hospital bed was, indeed, The Discourses of Epictetus, a famous Stoic philosopher. When Ron had back surgery a couple years ago, I spent the night with him in the hospital, and we jokingly referred to this as our sleepover. But I assure you it was no sleepover that you'd ever want to attend after nearly 20-hour operations with steel rods and screws placed in his back. I've had the opportunity to watch some pretty tough ultra runners suffering under 50, 75, 100 miles, but the manner in which Ron suffered even greater pain for far longer set the bar for being a stoic. I met Ron almost 20 years ago when I was wooing his daughter Ashley. I recall our first meeting. At the time, I lived in a town called New London, which I described as being on the west side, but Ash informed me that it was well beyond what Clevelanders considered the real west side, and it was practically in Indiana. So following my directions, Ron got lost, which I was pretty sure was not the way to make a good first impression. But eventually Ron and Lori arrived, and not knowing that Ron was such an accomplished musician, I thought it would impress him with a little serenade on the guitar of the simplest 3-chord folk songs. Later I learned that Ron had an amazing ear and was able to hear music with great accuracy. He was not just a section leader in his high school band, he was the lead alto sax player in the JCC Jazz Band. He worked in the pit orchestra for Kane Park Productions. During his junior year in high school, Ron won a full scholarship to Camp Pacific in San Diego, a jazz camp with many teachers who were members of the Stan Keaton Jazz Band. At Ohio State, Ron was pre-pharmacy major, but he played the saxophone first chair in a concert band that typically only had music majors. He played semi-professionally for years at local venues in Cleveland, but being the mensch and the stoic that he was, he sat there suffering through my rendition, and then he complimented me. And I even got to hear firsthand how talented Ron was when he surprised Ashley and me at our wedding by playing. Speaking of Ron's love of music, his brother Mal said that growing up and hearing Ron play the sax provided inspiration for him to pursue his own musical studies. Ron also passed along this love of music along to his grandchildren. I know some of Spencer's fondest memories of Ron, or Grampy, as the grandkids called him, were those spent practicing the saxophone and clarinet. I'm sure Gabe and Phoebe, too, fondly remember the time spent with Grampy on the piano, the guitar, and of course singing. I don't know of anything that made Ron happier than spending time with his grandchildren. It didn't matter what they were doing, drawing, telling stories, making crafts. He was proud of them, and he appreciated them. Ron was a great friend. Some of his friends he's had since grade school, like Reggie and Alan Harris, Mike and Ria Salkovich, and many others in this room. Some he met recently, like Katie Stillman, who he helped with his keen business mind to launch her successful business. Ron was the type of friend that would be there when you needed him. With his generous heart, he would do anything he could for you, and with his keen intellect, he would challenge you to be the best that you could. Ron's noble character shone through with his friends. As Helen Keller said, what we have once enjoyed deeply, we can never lose. All that we love deeply becomes a part of us. Ron has influenced all of us in ways that we don't even know yet, and his memory will always be with us. I think the best way that we can honor Ron's memory is for all of us to follow his example as a brother, a father, a grandfather, a stoic, and a mensch. Be a person of noble character. And as I conclude, I'd like to thank my wife Ashley, my mother-in-law Lori, my sister-in-law Allison for allowing me to be a part of the Barron family and for sharing Ron with me for all these years. He loved you all dearly, and I know that you loved him as well. While I'm sure Ron is sad to leave us, I know that he believed he had lived a wonderful life, and he was thankful that you were all very part of it. May Ron's memory be a blessing. Thank you.
Mike, thank you for your amazing and beautiful words. Mike spoke about longtime friends and how important friendships are and were to Ron. To also share beloved words of tribute and friendship, I'd like to call forward Alan Harris.
Hi. If you don't know me, I'm Alan Harris. I've been friends with Ronnie along with Mike Salkovich for over 55 years. Lori asked me to say a few words about Ronnie, mainly about how they first met, which was kind of a nice story, which I'll get to in a minute. You know how intelligent Ronnie was. He was like our family's second doctor. When we had a problem, we would call Ronnie, he would give us his opinion, then we'd call our doctor who would confirm it. More than once, Ronnie told us not to take certain prescribed medications because they would not be compatible with the medications that we're already taking. He was so conscientious and professional that when he said something, we knew he was right. Now, the story about how Ronnie and Lori met. I hope I get this right because it was about 50-some years ago, and my memory stinks. Lori was from Columbus and was visiting her sister Wendy at her apartment. Wendy was my sister's best friend, Susie, and they were neighbors. I went one day to visit my sister, and we went over to Wendy's. And what did I see but Lori sitting on a recliner, basically laying down, reading a Playboy magazine. So the first thing I thought about was, wow, she is so beautiful, and she must really be fast, reading a Playboy magazine. That shows you how first impressions can be so misleading. Lori's sister and brother-in-law had plans that night, so my sister asked me if I could fix Ronnie up with one of my friends. I really had only one friend who was good enough to date this hot babe, and that was Ronald Barron. My soon-to-be wife, Reggie, who's been friends with Ronnie since they were 5 years old, and I went out with him that night. I don't remember exactly where we went. I think maybe driving around Chagrin Falls, but I know we had a great time. That New Year's Eve, several months later, Lori came back to go out with Ronnie for dinner. We had dinner plans. Ronnie picked me up. Lori was in the car. We went to pick up Reggie. It was a snowstorm, and Ronnie smashed right into the basketball pole in Reggie's yard, almost knocking it over. He never lived that down. He also never went out with another lady again, except for Lori. Ronnie always joked that he never forgave me for fixing them up. After they were married, Lori had to move to Cleveland eventually. We did what we could to make it easier. It was difficult for her because she was a Bexley girl, but she did great. Lori and Ronnie, from my perspective, had a truly great marriage. I never heard them fight. I never heard them yell. Ronnie took great care of her, and Lori took absolutely great care of Ronnie, especially during his miserable back surgery and since he got ill this time. Lori was a terrific wife. Ronnie was a terrific husband, as well as a great father and grandfather. There's a lot more I could say about Ronnie, but Mike said it really well. We'll miss Ronnie so much, his kindness, his intelligence, his dry sense of humor, his love for life, his compassion, but we'll never forget him. He was one of a kind and a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful friend. He was always someone you could count on. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Ron had a storied career, as we've heard, first as a pharmacist, as a business consultant. He started his career as a pharmacist for Revco. As Revco turned into CVS, he continued to work for them, and then he moved on because he understood business and loved it. He earned his MBA and taught at John Carroll. What an amazing example for Ashley and Allison to watch their father reach for his dreams. He understood the importance of IT and was a pioneer in implementing electric records at hospitals. As a business person, he was what I, as a non-business person, might call equal opportunity. He got as much joy out of helping mentor a young, small business owner as he did watching Pinecrest, a large, large project, come to fruition. Ron also believed in giving back. He served on more committees and task forces than I could possibly list, from the Chagrin Gateway Democratic Club to working in the election for both Obama and Hillary Clinton, to working on voter registration, and of course, as an Orange Village councilman. So to speak about all of that and what it means for him to give back, it's really an honor for me to call upon Orange Village Mayor Kathy Mulcahy to share words of tribute.
I knew Lori for a long time before I had the pleasure of meeting Ron. When we started discussing Ron's interest in public service, Lori would extol his virtues in such glowing terms that I thought she might be including a small measure of wifely bragging and exaggeration. Until I met him and learned she was grossly understating her praise of Ron. From the first I met Ron, it was crystal clear that his charming, calm, and thoughtful demeanor made him well suited for public service. It was obvious from the beginning that he would be a very effective councilman and would serve his constituents honorably and intelligently. Ron was thoughtful, perceptive, and thorough. He knew how to advocate for his position without being disagreeable. An independent thinker, Ron evaluated issues from all sides and used his rational and strategic thinking skills to formulate solutions and solve problems. In addition to his family, Ron cared about his colleagues, his constituents, and the entire Orange Village family. He wanted to know how things worked in order to better serve his community. So much so that Ron even entered a burning building in full fire gear to get an insider understanding of the fire department's challenges and needs. Councilman Barron was held in high regard by all of us involved with Orange Village governance, as you may observe by the many employees and councilpersons here today showing their respect. Ron was a man that everybody liked. He had a way of making people feel heard and cared about. Ron was a very dependable and helpful advisor to me. Ron Barron was a man of integrity. One of Ron's main goals as a councilperson was to make sure that the Pinecrest development not only enhanced the quality of living in Orange Village, but also did so in a financially responsible manner. Councilman Barron was a key decision maker on Pinecrest matters and extremely skilled in evaluating the complex financial deal. Apparently, Ron was pleased enough with the outcome that he and his bride of 50-plus years moved into the apartments at Pinecrest. Ron also wanted to make investments to better the community and offer services to our residents that other communities may not be able to provide. These goals were expressed by Ron during his campaign, and I can honestly say he successfully achieved them as a councilman. In Ron's 5 years on council, he accomplished a lot and was a valuable team player. After Ron became a councilman in January 2014, he threw himself into his new position. He was always willing to help in any way he could. He even delivered the new resident welcome packets, which was greatly appreciated by all. During his time in office, Ron was a valuable member of the Orange Village Finance Committee. He was part of the working group responsible for our 2014 community survey. Ron became an executive board member of the Northeast Ohio City Council Association. He was the Orange Village liaison with the Orange School Board, and he became a member of the executive committee of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. As Mike mentioned, he was also active in Cuyahoga County on many local, state, and federal campaigns. As the mayor of Orange Village, I have worked with quite a few council people over the years. Some council people have been good, some have been great, but Ron was exceptional. Ron was the ultimate team player who contributed in a huge way. On behalf of Orange Village Council, staff, and residents, we honor Ron for his civic pride and service to our community. I would like to sincerely thank Lori, Allison, Ashley, Michael, Gabe, Phoebe, and Spencer for sharing him with us in our community. He was one of a kind, genuine, and well-respected. Ron Barron is irreplaceable. May we all find comfort in time with our many warm and loving memories of Ron. He will truly be missed. May he rest in peace.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Ron, as we know, loved music, was so talented as a musician, as a saxophone player. He loved jazz, and even in his hospital room these last months, it was constantly playing. In the song Thinking About You by Norah Jones, the lyrics, some of the lyrics state, "I guess it's time for me to let you go, and I'll be thinking about you when you sail across the ocean waters and you reach the other side safely. Could you smile a little smile for me, 'cause I'll be thinking about you." Indeed, we'll be thinking about you, Ron. You've sailed across those ocean waters, and we aren't going to see you again. And when we do think about you, we know that you'll keep teaching us. From you, we have so much to learn. To love each other more, to give back, to work hard, to be kind, to accept everyone. So let us know as we say goodbye, that as Ron's legacy grows in each of us, a part of him will always be with us. Let's take a few moments for silent prayer and reflection. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember you, Ron. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember you. In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember you, Ron. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the sun, we will remember you. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will always remember you, Ron. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember you. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember you, Ron. So long as we live, you too shall live, Ron, for you are now a part of us, and we will remember you. We turn now to our final prayer here in the chapel. This prayer is called El Malei Rachamim. It calls upon God's compassionate spirit, asking God to take Ron lovingly, as it were, into God's arms, as if God could hug and hold on to Ron. From there, we will proceed to Lakeview Cemetery, those going to the cemetery, where we will say a final farewell to Ron. Ron's name will be read in loving memory at the time of the Kaddish at Shabbat services at Suburban Temple Kol Ami this Friday tonight, and for the first month of Shloshim. As able, please rise. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat, Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Uteharim Kezohar, Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Ruven, Shahalach La'olamo, Ba'al Harachamim Yastirehu Beseter Kanafav La'olamim, Vayitzor Bitzor HaChaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, V'yanuach Bashalom Al Mishkavo, V'nomar Amen. God of abundant mercy, God Most High, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and the pure, whose light shines like the very radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold Ron close to you forever, so that his soul may be bound up in the bonds of everlasting life. May Ron find a home with you, and may he rest in peace. And together, let us say, Amen. Our service here is concluded. Please wait for instructions.